Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneur Rescue Mission, a time to grow production. So today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics and something that Nancy and I have been talking about quite recently over and over again, not just in our private community, but just in general. And it's the importance of sharing your origin story. Now, this is directed towards I would say LinkedIn mostly, because again, you're looking to build that know, like, and trust with your content. But what Nancy and I talk about, you can make it very relatable and uh, cross-posting it to other social media platforms. But this is really directed to the people out there that are business coaches, business consultants, service professionals, service providers that are really looking to showcase themselves the right way on LinkedIn with the right kind of content. And the question that we get from people when we talk about this is, why does it always start with your origin story? So, Nance, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, so, your origin story, when we talk about it like that, it's almost like helping to explain to people why you're doing what you're doing, right? It's kind of like, think about Superman or Batman, right? What are the things that happened, right? What were the pivotal moments in his life that led him to throwing on a cape and a hat and running around, that kind of thing, right? So the fact of the matter is, and I know many of you, right? Again, I see you and I hear you on the other side who are thinking, ugh, I feel like we gotta like wine and dine people these days, right? Just to kind of build connection and whatever. No, I think we just have to kind of peel back the layers a little bit and realize that people connect with people. Okay. People connect with people, not just your job title or what it is that you do. When you put things on your LinkedIn profile, for example, you know, putting something simple like health insurance broker or, CEO of XYZ or whatever, that doesn't tell us much of anything. Okay. It doesn't really tell us why maybe we would want to connect with you. You know, it doesn't tell us really why you are different from this person over here. Okay. But when we share content such as our origin story, it's so impactful because it really helps you cut through the noise of all the other stuff that's going out there. Okay, I'm sure you guys have scrolled, on the news feed on LinkedIn and you've seen like, a really impactful quote like, "Ooh, that one makes me feel happy," or, "Oh, that's a great leadership quality. Excellent," right? I'm sure you've seen those things. But do you remember who originally posted it? Probably not. You probably remember the quote, right? But when you actually see someone sharing, what they've overcome, that those milestones, those pivotal moments, that got them to doing what they do, why they believe in what they believe in, what drives them, right? That's the kind of stuff where we look at and we go, "Ooh, I totally resonate with that person." And I think we forget. In fact, I've got this little book over here. So if you guys aren't watching the video, Book Yourself Solid. It's a book by Michael Port. There's this one, and there's another one, Fanatical Prospecting, right? I'm sure a lot of sales, people have read these books, but they really talk about the reality of what we're using social media for. A lot of people think that they're just going to post a bunch of content and they're going to have people calling them, busting down the doors, right? DMing them, "Oh my gosh, I want to work with you." But that's not really the whole point and the whole purpose of where social media really helps you. Okay. Especially if you're selling high ticket things. If you're working with businesses, even if you're closing clients, right? It's a higher ticket offer. What you're actually using social media for and what you're using LinkedIn for is to build familiarity. It's to build connection. It's to get yourself out there to showcase what you do, to show that you are the person to do that job.
It's bridging the gap.
It's bridging the gap. So when you look at something like your origin story, okay, because people ask all the time, well, what do I post on LinkedIn? I know I should be out there, but do I just say, call me, book me, whatever? They're like, it's so hard to share what I do without being spammy. Okay. Well, this is exactly what we're talking about. So the origin story is one example of how you can share what it is that you do in a non-spammy way. You can not only help get more eyeballs, right, from LinkedIn onto this post. We've actually seen it performs really well. In fact, it was one of our top performing posts in the last couple months, that we had actually clients put together. But it also positions you as a trusted voice in your niche. It attracts aligned clients or even people who might want to collaborate with you. It helps open the doors to speaking, media, partnerships, right? We want people that have interesting stories. Okay. If you're just like, hey, my name's Bob and I like to sell a lot of stuff, and that's why I do what I do. I just like to sell to you. So you get on the call with me, I'm gonna sell to you. No. But if you're like, "Hey, I'm Bob, I actually am a health insurance broker because my father was a health insurance broker, and I saw how passionate he was about actually helping build team and culture by picking the right plans and doing all these things, and how impactful you can be in a position where people might think it's very generic. We take this very seriously. We go above and beyond. We know that HRs have a tough job because that's what my mom did, right? And it's like you can just keep taking it, Again, you're not making stuff up, but I'm just saying, right? How much more impactful, right? Like, I would so much rather hire a health insurance broker who is passionate and can tell me, right, why they're so passionate about what they do and all these different milestones in a non cheesy, very straightforward way. That makes me feel better about getting on a phone call with you. That makes me feel better. That kind of takes that guard down, right? It builds with rapport without even having, right, to jump on the call. Okay. It builds that rapport. So, like Scott said, it helps to close the gaps, right? You're warming up, picture all these cold leads, right? We're getting them on the skillet. Okay. We're getting them kind of warmed up a little bit with what we're doing. So, that is the power and that is the impact that posting this type of content can have. And I will tell you, again, our data confirms that your origin story post and these posts of a person. I don't care, guys. You could be the CEO of your company. You could be the head of a nonprofit. You could be, a sales rep. You could be in any position, but you sharing a personal story, that's going to outperform a lot of this other generic crap that you're posting. I promise. Okay. Now, we want to talk about why it's so hard, right, for people to pull this type of content out of themselves, right? Why it's so hard to write about themselves. So, Scott, you want to share that?
Well, for me, this was actually a really good test for me because I had never shared my origin story on LinkedIn. I just kind of assumed that people knew who I was and what I did. But I had a tough time connecting the dots and actually had to tell my origin story where it would relate to my audience, where they would understand where I came from, what my big decision was, or that I would say pivotal moment that allowed me to kind of bridge into what I'm doing now. But what that does is it allowed me to humanize myself to my audience, not just my new audience, but my older audience. I've been building my network on LinkedIn for 12 and a half years. So the way that I've been posting has ebbs and flows, it has changed, but the power of when I shared my origin story and I actually shared this feedback with Nancy, I'm like, this is the most engagement I've gotten from a text only post, I think ever. Because what Nancy's created in our community with our GPTs, it started to pull information out from me because obviously it's pulling information out from you. When you're so close to what you do, you can't think outside of that of how to properly express what you do. And with the questions that I was being asked with the origin story prompt, it was pushing me further away so I could really take that 10,000 foot view of my origin story so I could properly describe it to my audience. Um, but it allowed me to really hone in and create a visual representation of my journey and my story that anyone that stumbled upon it on LinkedIn could resonate with it. And it wasn't directed towards any one person, any one industry, but it really allowed me to tell that story in a much more deep, meaningful, and humanizing way. And the other cool thing is, I started sharing this origin story with some of my clients, and I'm like, why don't you give this a try? Because maybe you've never done this before. And they were getting the same results. They, and we kept hearing this from the clients that we work with is like, man, I've never had this many impressions before. I haven't had that many people engage. But Nancy, what I'll say that it's really done for me, it's
Yeah.
allowed me to start thinking differently about how I'm actually creating content on LinkedIn. I actually posted about this in our community earlier today. I did a poll question. And what I used to do with poll questions was I would just use hashtag question for my network. I would have my question and the answer choices, and that's it. What I started to do recently, in the past, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, I started adding a little bit of like origin story slash thought leadership content underneath the hashtag question for my network and above the poll to bring more context to it and to create more conversation. And even though at the time that we're recording this, I posted the poll this morning, it maybe has close to 20 votes, but there are four comments and conversations going on right now. And that's never happened. And Nance, I know you can attribute that to the same thing. People just like vote and they just move. Now, dwell time, which is more time that people spend on the post, the more it's going to be seen on people on LinkedIn, the more LinkedIn will show it to people. I'm having more people engage in my poll questions now. So it's almost like another version of my origin story post, but just the prompt has helped me so much. I can't express to people when you can remove yourself, you know, you can't see the label from inside the jar. When you kind of push yourself away from your origin story and you start looking at it from a different perspective of how can I clearly explain this journey and this story to someone that's maybe never met me before or doesn't know it that I've been connected to, it helps connect the dots so much, but it brings people closer to you so you can start to build that know, like, and trust. And trust me this, like I promise you, you will have more people engaging over time with more of your content because they're going to see the value and the deep context that you bring to your content just by sharing a post just like your origin story.
Yep, absolutely. So, we've created these tools. They're actually things that we share in our community. We do 6 different ones each week. In fact, if you guys could see, I'm so full transparent. It takes me a long time to create each individual, actual tool. And it will ask you questions because I refuse. Okay. Again, right? I am such an
No
advocate.
garbage.
I love AI, but guys, if you're just using it to pump out a bunch of garbage that's generic, there's a better way.
Yeah.
Okay.
No
And the
garbage.
thing is I believe that we can use AI, and that's exactly what we do in our community to pull the authenticity, the real, the stories that are something that maybe you struggle to share. They pull them out of you and they help you format it to best practices for different types of LinkedIn posts. Okay, we do. In fact, the week that we did the origin story, because each month, right, in our expert contents, I can't talk, expert content society, right, we actually share, right, there's a big theme and it's all about building those building blocks, right? We actually call it the visibility to conversion method. It's about building those building blocks, right, of your credibility and your thought leadership and all of those things. So, in that same week, right, we shared, a prompt to help you write a text post, and then one to help you do a poll, and then one to help you write a newsletter, right, and a little post to go along with it. And then we also shared like carousel and, quote and all this other stuff, right? So,
Every
we
type
have a
of post.
variety, but there's 6 each week, is my point, right? And origin story was just one of them. And the thing is, it really just guides you through, right, each of the prompt to help you not overthink, right? Not over polish yourself, not to create what people think, you want them to hear. It just organizes your story in a really nice and powerful post that helps you get it out there with clarity, make sure it flows, make sure it's professional tone, and it's optimized for LinkedIn.
You know what I realized, Nance,
Yeah.
when I started, kind of diving more into them? It's almost like having a copywriting coach. If you were working with a copywriting coach, they would prompt you with questions, right? Like, let's dig into this. Let me ask you a couple questions, and they would say, okay,
Yeah.
let me get back to you in a couple days, and I'm going to create some, a post for you, and let me.
Yep.
But now it happens instantly. So it's almost like having this professional copywriting coach, a part of your team, that's pulling all of the necessities of sharing your business, your brand, your strategy, your expertise, myth busting, all of those things with just a click of a button. And I was working with a client today, Nance, and they actually just joined the community. And it's a the husband runs the company. The sister is the CMO, and obviously the wife was there too. And I was giving her a tour of the hub, and we were going through a couple different prompts, and she just kept shaking her head like in amazement, like this is unbelievable. And she's like talking over the computer. She's like, "You got to come see this." And it's so fulfilling knowing that one of the biggest pain points that coaches, consultants, and service professionals have is not knowing what to post, not knowing how to post, and not how to clearly showcase their expertise. We have taken that all away with simple copywriting coach prompts that you can use in our community now.
Yeah, and I will say, so one of the actual AI tools that I put together was how to kind of share with people what you do in your framework, right? So it's breaking down how you actually work with people. And I was telling the people in the community, guys, if you haven't done this yet, this prompt and this actual tool is going to help you actually tighten this up for your business, right? Because it should be nice and clear, right? The framework of how you work with people. And so again, right, we've taken a lot of the guesswork out. We actually created a little free download that you guys can download. We'll put the link in the description of this comment or in this episode. But it's three high impact LinkedIn post templates that we know work. You know, again, they're tried and true. And then we added that origin story, GPT, that we mentioned, right? So you just have to use it with Chat GPT, right? It works best with the paid version if you are already using it.
Use the
Uh,
paid version.
yeah, I definitely recommend the paid version. I mean, my God, the amount of time that it has saved has been so
Not even that. For $20 a month, you can't beat it. Like it
oh my
does,
goodness.
it
Yeah.
does so
So
much for your business.
it's wonderful. I mean, you can absolutely get by with the free version, but it's definitely much quicker and streamlined with the paid version. But, the origin story GPT that I provided is absolutely wonderful. All you got to do is click on the link in the download and it will take you to where you just start answering questions, right? And at the end of it, it's going to pop out, your origin story and give you a nice little post that you can go right to LinkedIn and post. And guys, that's for free. So check it out. That's also how what we do, like I shared, you get 6 of those every single week in the community in Expert Content Society. So the doors are currently closed. They will be opening soon. So if you do want to join the wait list as well, we'll throw that link in there as well. But it's something we are so passionate about because we are not trying to have people create generic crap. Okay. We are about building your authentic personal brand, right? It's showing up as the leader. It's creating amazing content. And guys, for everyone who is out there going, oh, this is just a waste of time, content does nothing, whatever, we talked about it, right? It fills gaps, it closes gaps. In
It
fact,
does
the
so
fact that, I mean,
much.
we've actually seen people close huge proposals just by newsletters and whatever. Your credibility, we've seen people get jobs, offered positions without even being interviewed based on their content on LinkedIn alone. We've seen people get offered to be on covers of magazines, oh my gosh, your stuff. Can you be on, this digest or whatever?
Podcast,
It's
keynote
it's happened.
speeches.
Like when you also create great content like this, and sorry, I'm just going off the rails a little, but like when you create good content like this, when you make those connections with the people you really want to connect with that seem a little far to reach, they look at your stuff and they know you're the real deal. Okay. Scott, in fact, has built his credibility over time so much that I actually, when I get my fangirl going and there's someone I've been following, whether it be in the marketing world or maybe it's an author that I love, I'll go, ooh, Scott, go connect with, Travis Bradbury, author of Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and see if you can get him on your podcast, right? Travis Bradbury, connected on LinkedIn, connect, interview set up, podcast interview. Now they're connected and good to go. Andy Cresadina, author of Content Chemistry, right? Scott, go connect. So when people see that you are the real deal, you know what you're talking about. You're real. You're sharing that behind the scenes, right? People can see that you're a good person and that you're sharing, those things. Guys, it does make all the difference. So it's all piece of that layer cake, right, of building connection.
Yep. So again, if you would like our free resource, it's the 3 high impact post template for LinkedIn. All you have to do is click the link in the description. As Nancy mentioned, you get one of our prompts for absolutely free so you can try it out. And again, the Expert Content Society, the wait list is up, but you could definitely jump on the wait list because we will be opening the doors at some point. Shh, we'll tell you at a later time when that's going to be happening, but definitely get on the wait list. So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Love and gratitude, and we'll talk to you next time.